All right.
Hi.
Hi, everyone. So this was a very, very lovely introduction. We are finally live. Emily was like, "What is this?" Well, this is our beginning tune. Thank you all so much for tuning
Nice.
in. Welcome, Emily. Thank you,
Hello.
everyone who is here also for tuning in for another ecstasy session. Today, we are going to speak with someone very, very, very interesting and important, I would say as well. Emily, you can give a proper introduction, maybe in a couple of seconds from now. What I will tell to everyone who is already watching is that Emily is many, many different things and a great woman, an example, I would say, to us other women in the blockchain space. She's a leadership coach, a prior crypto CMO, a growth advisor, a podcast host, and many, many other things as well. Emily, would you like to properly introduce yourself, perhaps?
Yes. Hi. Yeah. Thanks, Alex. Hi, everybody. Yes, I'm Emily Rose Delara. And as Alex says, I am a multidimensional human with what they would call maybe a portfolio career. But really, I have a business, and this business is very much focused on helping other people build their businesses sustainably through founder led practices, if I want to say it that way. So basically, I was a CMO in crypto. I entered the space 2015-ish. I've been on a few ecstasy events before, so hi everybody who's already met me. And I burnt out twice in the process. And as much as I was successful financially and in terms of career, I just didn't enjoy it as I should have done. And it actually wrecked my health physically, mentally, emotionally, everything. And so when I decided to step back from my career and start my own business, I actually really focused on healing me first so I could help other people. And that took me down the route of, whilst I was doing all the leadership coaching, because I qualified as a leadership coach in the meantime, I started to become a somatic practitioner and somebody who can delve into the nervous system of other people and figure out what's keeping them stuck, what's keeping them in particular behaviors, what is causing them to have anxiety when they wake up in the morning, and what's getting them to keep going at a million miles an hour until burnout. Like I wanted to really figure out what all this was about. And so when I became a somatic practitioner and started healing myself, I realized, wow, this is actually not rocket science. This is actually quite simple to do. And all people need to know how to do this. And all I did was regulate my nervous system and increase the capacity of my nervous system, which then helped me to process things that were stuck in my nervous system. So I've spent years studying this stuff, and I'm obsessed with the trauma world, and I'm obsessed with startups, I'm obsessed with businesses, and I really bring all of that together now to help founders grow their business.
Brilliant. Thank you for that wonderful introduction, Emily. Much appreciated. And I'm sure that everyone who is watching already grasped indeed what a multi-dimensional person you are. Let me just also show really quickly that, of course, we're here also today to talk about the crypto space and about how to manage the new bull season that is already, of course, on the way for quite some time, although other people might beg to differ given recent volatility and whatnot. But one thing is for sure, the event season is kind of like starting right now. Generally, I would say pressure in startups and in crypto space is generally quite high, regardless if you are working for a bigger company, a startup, maybe you're a founder yourself. But of course, specifically, we are also going to speak a little bit about women and about women's couple of challenges that we tend to face. Now, I want to be very careful today with stereotyping and projecting maybe my own feelings upon the audience. We'll be speaking in a, I would say, neutral kind of way if we can today. I also know that there is some men who signed up wonderfully for our International Women's Day special here today. But what I do want to mention really, really quickly is that, ecstasy, of course, is kind of like born as a community for women, for female professionals in the Web3 space, right? As an example, or I would say as an initiative that Thrilled Labs is aiming to set up. Now, what I really quickly do want to mention here, just for 1 or 2 minutes, is that women approximately, right, depending on the research report that you're seeing, make up about 25 to 30% of the workforce in leading Web3 startups, supposedly. Most of us, if we can say so, work in non-technical roles like human resources, marketing, and whatnot. And what is important to mention is that stress, of course, can be generally high in a working environment, but specifically in crypto, related businesses and in such environments as well. You see the numbers here on screen, so I don't have to go through it, but we all know that there's relatively few female founders in the space as well. Very few crypto startups are actually female-led. And of course, there's also, many challenges that we face as females, for instance, with regards to raising capital, but also with regards to many different other topics. In that regard, what I would also say is that throughout Labs, we have I would say, original article coming up in the next couple of days. Probably on Saturday, we'll publish it, where we will look at some of these statistics and also some of the initiatives that are being launched in the space. Also with a more critical angle, and we will also look at Web3 from a more feminist development perspective. So that is coming up very soon. Now, this is going to be interesting because today, of course, we have Emily with us. And I think one thing that I took away from you, but you will explain this way better, later on, is that there is good stress and there is bad stress, apparently. But as far as I've understood, and we'll speak about that later on, the nervous system regards those stress forms in kind of like a similar way, or if not in entirely the same way. And if you are dealing with certain maybe stresses in a not optimal form, and we will hear from you later on exactly how that works, that can build up over time and that can create lots of different issues. Now, what can you do in that very regard? As far as I've taken away from you is you can develop specific management practices, resilience, but also focus on creating more sustainable leadership. And in that regard, you are, of course, a really good example as a proper specialist and growth expert, I would say. Now, therefore, luckily, Emily, we will finally turn to you, and I will stop talking. If it's all right with you, I would love to start with the first question, just to kind of like speak a little bit more about your personal experience. You've been in the crypto space since many years. You've also been hustling, for instance, at events, right? I remember pictures that you've shown in the past during prior talks that we had. Just generally, what were some big mistakes that you made when you were hustling in the past, for instance, at events or elsewhere during bull markets and whatnot, and that you look back to right now as a specialist and you were like, if I could tell this to myself, I wish I had known that.
Mm-hmm. That's a really good question, because I was actually thinking about this today. Back when I was doing like event after event, it was usually going to, I lived in Vietnam at the time, so most of the events were in Europe at the time. So I was flying to Europe, not sleeping enough, step one, not eating enough, not hydrating enough. Then I'd get to the event and be instantly on. The whole time of going to the event, I would be constantly on as well, checking my phone, checking my emails, everything. I would get to the event, then I was on. I had no time to rest at all. So I would get there, talk to everybody, lose my voice a bit, not eat anything because I had quite a restrictive diet at the time. So also had bulimia. So that was a big thing. I was constantly missing meals, not eating enough, not drinking enough, drinking alcohol, going to all the events, not sleeping enough. These are all the mistakes I made, and then saying yes to everything as well. And then I'd come back from the events after I'd been non-stop for maybe a week. And during these events, I was working hard. Like I was at booths and delivering information. And at the time, I was also managing marketing for different companies. So I was actually managing people and getting them to do things. I would come home and just be dead for a week and not be able to do anything and just feel terrible. And so the biggest mistakes I made there were really just not looking after my physical health to start with.
I would say that is, especially, when we were still, when I was still drinking alcohol a couple of years ago, I can very much relate to what you just said. I think it's also what you said about food, especially during events, you really sometimes forget to eat. What I can very much relate to personally as well is that you're on this hype or high, I would say, right? You're speaking with all these people all day long. Maybe you're at your own stand, or maybe you're on a panel discussion, and everyone is like excited, high almost from the human interactions. What I can personally feel after events, especially after multiple day events, is that I'm just exhausted. Like I can't talk with anyone
Mhm.
anymore. So that is something that you can relate to as well. That's not
Yeah.
just something that I have.
And this is very common as well. Like I have other female leaders who I work with, and they have this is their biggest problem. And actually, we
Mm.
spend a lot of one-on-one time, me building them rituals to help them manage these seasons, because you need things in place to help you feel good whilst doing this.
Now, thank you. Does that also relate a little bit, or correct me if I'm wrong, to this nervous system capacity that you oftentimes, speak about? Can you perhaps explain a little bit what it means for founders and indeed
Mhm.
Web3 professionals, and maybe how we can use it or leverage it during this type of overwhelming situations?
Mhm.
Or correct me if I'm wrong. Can you just talk to me about the nervous system capacity?
Yeah. So whenever I say nervous system, tell me what you think I mean. Like what would you say the nervous system means to you?
It's something very, very abstract in my mind. I'm someone who really believes in almost like the division of the spirit and the body. Now, I know that you probably don't agree, but
Mhm.
when I think about nervous system, I just think about probably a set of, wires and nerves in the brain that are attached to your body and that might be, overwhelmed or that might be triggered in ways with regards to external, yeah, input basically and externality. So
Mhm.
if you say nervous system, I just think about the interaction between the outside world and the inside world, and also in the inside world, the body and the mind that are in some way
Okay.
disconnected.
Yeah, so kind of, right? So the nervous system, the autonomic nervous system, controls the systems in our body. It controls how we breathe, how the blood pumps, it controls our hormones, it controls our digestion, our reproductive system, those systems. Okay, a few different bits and pieces as well. But one thing it does control is our survival response as well. So you might have heard the phrase fight flight, right? If you're in a fight flight state, you're anxious, you're ready to fight or flee. And you might have heard the term parasympathetic nervous system, rest and digest,
Mm.
especially if you're a yogi or you meditate. Now, these are all very normal states to be in. But in the past 20 or so years, there's been a lot more research into these, the way that the nervous system works and how it impacts our everyday lives. And there's something called polyvagal theory by a guy called Stephen Porges. And polyvagal theory tells us that there's not just fight or flight and there's not just rest and digest. It's a bit more complicated than that. And it's really important that we know how it works so we can actually live a better life and increase our capacity to deal with things. So we actually have four states that kind of blend into each other at any one time. So we have fight flight. Fight is when you are angry, frustrated, you want to hit someone. That's the kind of energy, really irritated, defensive. If you want to put it into a work context, it's like you get feedback and you instantly want to like scream at the person. That's your first reaction. That's in a fight mode. Um, you're in a flight mode if you are constantly trying to move. You're moving quickly all the time. You're kind of probably not detail oriented. You're kind of just rushing, trying to get things done. You are trying to avoid people. You often, when you're doing these things quickly, actually, you're often doing it so you don't have to deal with it, if that makes sense. You kind of like get through it without feeling it. You also have this constant urgency that there's something to do. So women especially have this. I need to go do the laundry. I need to go and send this email that like I should have replied to like 10 years ago. I need to go and like order this thing that isn't really important. Urgency. You wake up with it, it's an anxiety. The urgency is the nervous system response, the anxiety is a symptom. Okay. So when you say I've got anxiety, actually, it's just a symptom of a nervous system state that you're in. That's fight flight. Then we've got freeze. Freeze is like you probably heard of functional freeze. Freeze is when you're going through the motions, you're numbed out, you're disassociated, you're just flat. You don't really have any big emotions. Okay. And then we've got something called fawn, which is a blended state between fight, flight, and freeze. And that's the people pleaser. you're trying to get somebody to come over to your way of thinking. You're trying to negotiate so it benefits you. You're trying to keep other people happy. You're trying to you're saying yes to things, but you absolutely don't mean yes. And your body feels it as well. So these are nervous system states, and anything you feel because of these nervous system states are all symptoms. So when people say I've got ADHD, right? You probably don't, and in fact, since I've studied this for the last few years, I've really questioned labels, really questioned giving yourself a label, because actually, if when we understand the nervous system and how it works, these labels don't matter, because there's actually ways to stop doing these things. And then, oh, you don't have ADHD anymore, right? I've literally done this with myself. I've literally healed the ADHD symptoms that I said I had all the time in a really simple way. And so that's the basis of the nervous system. And we, in the context of going to an event, the things that are the reason that you're taking the actions, like not eating, not sleeping, not drinking, come from your nervous system state. And most of the time, you're in a flight mode. You're scared, right? There's something that's triggered a survival response and you're scared. You go to an event, you're scared you're going to miss something. You're scared you're not going to get money. You're scared you're not going to get the approval from your boss who sent you there to go and do something. There's lots of things attached to it. And if you haven't been in tune with your nervous system, you're not listening to your body cues. You're not listening to when you need to pee, when you need to eat, when you need to drink, when you need to sleep. Right?
Okay.
So you're completely detached.
Yeah.
When we come back to the nervous system states that we're in and we're able to recognize what our body actually needs through inquiry, then we start to notice the cues. Then we start to give our body what it needs. Then we're able to notice when we're in a certain state and come back down to a state of peace really easily. Then we're able to figure out why we even get into these nervous system states. And that's a bit more advanced. And I would get you to work with a coach or a practitioner on that. But that's the basis of it.
Now, let me quickly follow up with a question here, right? I could definitely relate to everything that you said. I was almost like laughing before when you were speaking about flight as well, because let's be honest, during certain events with certain people, I do want to escape, like get me out of here, like someone who's just going on and on and on. Anyway, there's also lots of lovely people, but definitely sometimes I'm in a flight mode and you can't escape because you're there and you don't want to be rude. Now, let me ask you the actual, yes.
I can teach you how to say no in those situations, actually.
Maybe for the viewers, that would be lovely. I have to say that I've improved this now after maybe 20 events or so. But yeah, if you could give a tip, that would be awesome. Please do. Please do.
Yeah. So if you actually notice that sensation of, I've got to go, I've got a meeting to get to, I'm like, this guy's boring me, whatever, you have to start to notice when your body is telling you that. What are the cues? Because your body feels it before you start thinking it. Are your feet moving back and forth? Do you feel like you need to, like, you're doing your hair or like you're looking at things, right? Your body's telling you, this isn't for me right now. And then you need to develop the communication skills to communicate that and create a boundary. Like maybe you want to move back. Maybe you want to put your arms out like a bit, like just create a bit of space and step back and state your need. I thank you so much for having this conversation, but I need to go. And if they continue, that's on them. You've communicated it. Sorry, my light keeps going off here.
No, that's brilliant. I appreciate you saying this. It's all about being kind of like clear and listening to our own body, but ideally also maybe looking at the other person's body, because maybe at times we are not the aggressor, would be the right word, but at times maybe we are the one that is slightly bugging someone. It can happen, especially if you're really enthusiastic. So I say I start seeing someone looking away, they're more interested in what's happening behind me. That's like a cue for me that have talked too much. Now, what about social approval? Henrik is rightfully saying. I don't know exactly what he poses here. Maybe if you don't want to be rude, let's say anything with regards to social approval here that you.
Sorry, the
Hendrik's
connection
question,
keeps
Emily.
dropping out here. I'm not sure why.
Do you hear me
A bit
still?
there. Yeah,
Can
it's just
you
a
hear
bit
me?
frozen, but I can hear
All
you.
right.
Social approval. So I'm taking this as going with the status quo, right? What do people think of me? That's also a nervous system state. That would be classed as fawning. So social approval, if you're seeking approval from somebody else, you're fawning. That's you being scared of what somebody else is going to think of you. And that's work that needs to be done, to be very honest. That's being able to notice when you're seeking approval or why you need to seek approval is really important. Trying to step into the norm, like, and it comes, like, there's lots of different things here that come into play, but values come into play as well.
Thank you very, very much for elaborating. I would perhaps really quickly ask you, can we also, like, now that we are a little bit more aware about this, so like nervous system, right? Can we also perhaps hack it in some way, like use it in our benefit during this type of high stress situations? Any tips?
Yeah. But first of all, you need to know what state you're in. So I have something called a nervous system decoder that I use with my clients, and I have a color spectrum. And the color spectrum is very simple. So if you're calm, you feel at peace, you feel really safe, you're breathing slowly, your heart rate's slow, you're in a green state. If you're feeling slightly like agitated, or like a bit like you were telling me, like you want to get away from this person, they're speaking too much, they're annoying you, you're in a yellow state. And if you're like really, really angry, frustrated, you want to like punch someone or you want to get out of there, that's a red state. And if you're not feeling anything at all, maybe you're feeling completely closed off and like completely introverted, you don't want to talk to anyone, you're frozen, which is not the best state to be in. And that's a much harder state to get out of quickly. Then you're in a purple state. So I use this to help my clients just simplify it. And there's a really easy thing that you can do anywhere to help you to get out of a yellow or a red state. And that's 4-7-8 breath. You've learned this with me, Alex. Breathing in for 4, hold for 7, and breathe out for 8 slowly, as many times as you need to. And there's another tool that I use, which is physiological sigh. So 2 short breaths in through the nose, and you breathe out slowly as if you're breathing out through a straw. And you repeat as many times as you need to. So that's really simple that you can do anywhere. There's another one that I love that Linnea Passler and who else is it who does this? Irene Lyons, 2 scientists in the nervous system use. And you basically cradle your head like this, and you put your hands behind your back. So maybe you want to go to the bathroom or whatever and do this. And then you look straight ahead and you turn just your eyes to one side. And as you do this, you breathe in through the nose and out through the mouth with a sigh. We try and stimulate the vagus nerve here. And you do that until you yawn, until you laugh, cry, until there's some kind of bodily response, usually yawning. And then you'll try it on the other side. So 30 seconds on each side. Without moving your head, you just move your eyes. And you can try this. And this just helps to stimulate the vagus nerve using bilateral movement. That's 3 simple hacks you could try. There's lots of other ones, like tons. But it really does depend on the flexibility, the capacity of your nervous system, and the state that you're in.
Massive. This is really, really helpful. And I'm going to look this back later because, as everyone is also noticing, I'm kind of like shifting between the different screens you see and whatnot. So I'm not always 100% fully registering everything that you say, Emily. Also, because I had some Wi-Fi issues, I really, really hope that everyone is still, watching properly.
Yeah, I can see you fine.
Okay, massive. Yeah.
I actually released a book last week. It's a collaborative book called Visible. It's a business book, business strategy book. And I think there's like 10 other people who've co-authored this. And my chapter was all about the nervous system.
Okay.
And so you can read all about this. You can learn about functional freeze. You can learn about high functioning anxiety, these kind of mixed states that people can be in. And there's also a link in there to some tools that you can try. Actually, you can have the link here, actually, if you want. Go get the book if it's relevant to you. But the link is emilyrosedelara.com/visible.
Excellent. If you want, feel free to type that to me in the chat. Then I'm going to put that right on screen. I'll wait till you're finished with typing.
Yeah. And so I put some tools. So basically, the chapter's all about educating people about the nervous system, because you need the psychoeducation before you can apply it. Like, it's really difficult to understand it otherwise. And then the tools here on this link teach you how to do it.
Massive. So let me just pop that right there on screen. I hope it works. Let me have a look. All right.
Yay.
Yes, massive. Now, listen.
And the book's behind me here.
Oh, really? It's right there. All right. Yes, that's amazing. That is amazing. Let me now also just I want to speak for a second, if you don't mind, also about women specifically. There's two things that I want to ask you. First of all, a lot of hardworking women, probably including ourselves, tell ourselves, and lots of other women will probably do the same thing too, I will rest when things slow down. Now, is this a dangerous mindset in your opinion? And just generally, maybe has this anything to do with what I recently saw you post, that some women out there are really keen to get validation? Now, I think this is maybe going to piss some people off, but I would love to hear your thoughts. Is this true? I think it is.
Yeah. So the first point on the not resting, I'll rest when, what was it? I'll rest when
it's done.
There's
when
nothing
I'm
happening.
successful.
Yeah, when it's done.
Yeah.
But the problem is, success is not a destination, is it? Right? Unless like success is, I'm going to retire with 100 million, right? It's going to take a while to get there. And if you don't learn how to manage, number one, your nervous system, your mindset, the way you perform, the way you show up, the person that you are, then it's always going to be, I'll rest later. Because there's more and more stuff. If you're building a successful business, right, there's always more stuff. And the more successful you get, there's more stuff. You have to hire people, you have to train people, you have more money problems, there's like more money successes, so many things come up, and there's never another time to rest. And the most successful people I know are successful because they learned how to rest properly, and they learned how to optimize their mind, body, soul, emotions.
Thank you very much. I was just checking out a comment by Henrik, who is always lovely interacting. He is saying, let me have a look, because, okay, he's saying, this is what I was thinking, if valuable. Our nervous system helps us feel good when we are accepted by others, shaping our self-esteem and encouraging social bonding. It also helps us feel safe and connected in social situations by controlling how we respond to others.
Exactly. When you're in ventral vagal, right? So Henrik, go and have a look into polyvagal theory, or get my book, talk all about this. The ventral vagal state is when you're calm and socially engaged. I even have the chart behind this laptop. I always like look at it to remind me where I'm at. And ventral vagal is social engagement, being in community, being around people, feeling safe. So actually, it's less about acceptance. Acceptance is a survival response as well. So we do actually need to feel accepted, because generationally, and like how would I say this? Our ancestors, if they were not accepted and they were kicked out of the tribe, then they will die, right? That's a survival response. That's not your nervous system. It's a survival response that's built into our generation, our DNA. Once you're aware of that, you can change it. Okay, so it is in our DNA to want this acceptance. But the difference between the nervous system and this need to have acceptance, there's a difference. But our nervous system is in a green state, in a ventral vagal state, when we are social and engaged and safe. It's a bit different. So one is the survival response. I need to be socially approved and accepted to survive. And another is being socially engaged in a green zone, like I'm calm and I'm safe. And community helps you to do that. So people resource. So for example, you might have heard of co-regulation. That's being with people, socially engaged.
Okay. Okay, brilliant. Now, let's say that we have been hypothetically in a little bit of a negative spiral. For instance, let's take a step back and think about the markets. Imagine that you're very, very engaged with the crypto markets. Maybe you're a trader, or maybe you're just very influenced by the status of the market or by the status of your company. Things are maybe not going so well. How do I know that I'm kind of like stuck into something that I think you've called survival mode? Can you elaborate a little bit more about the survival mode, and also let me know how I can get out of it?
So what you're telling me here is you're in a negative spiral. You're probably in a state of shutdown or freeze. So tell me a bit more about how, hypothetically speaking, right? If you're in this kind of state, what are the symptoms?
Mm. Well, this is indeed a hypothetical situation, because I must tell you that I'm thrilled, and it's for some time now that everything is going relatively well. But of course, let's say I've down periods too, right? Let's just say that if I get a rejection, I feel terribly bad about that. Like, I take it very, very personally. Maybe I become a little bit depressed. Maybe it can even be personal things that really hit upon how I pursue work. Negative things that are happening. Just generally this feeling of feeling down, but going and going and going anyway. I don't know if this is too broad, but I also try to keep it broad so that hopefully enough people that are watching can relate to this.
Yeah. So when you're experiencing these kind of things, to help me identify the nervous system state, what are this? You told me you're depressed. How does depressed feel? Like in sensations?
Yeah, I would say like this feeling in your stomach, right? This feeling that you have this knot in your stomach that is aching, something that makes you almost feel nauseous a little bit. When you see another rejection, or someone is nasty to you, or something nasty happens, that feeling of want to strangle someone almost.
So it's almost like you're in a fight.
Yeah.
And a bit of freeze. So yeah. And you move into a functional freeze mode. So it's a blended state. So you're functioning, you're getting the stuff done, but it doesn't feel good. You don't feel good in the body. You don't feel any kind of safety. It feels hard.
Yeah. I think many people can probably relate to this.
Yeah. So what you'll find in these situations is you've had a rejection, for example, that's triggered a survival response. We don't know where it comes from. We don't need to know right now. And that's created a sensation in the body. And from my lens, I work from the bottom up. You know this already. So the sensation happens in the body, and then you react with an emotion, and then you react with a thought. And it's a constant spiral. And when you're in this, you just, and I bring a bit of energetics into this as well. We have science, we have energetics together. So we have this response that's happening in the body, your negative spiral. And then the only way that you can get out of it is to change something. And usually in that situation, the change is an external change. You're not controlling it. It's like someone's coming to you with an opportunity, or you've made a sale or something, right? But until then, you don't feel relief. In fact, sometimes when you stay in that space, you just keep attracting more of it, because energetically, like attracts like. We keep getting it. And I just want to make a point here for everyone who's listening. My lens is that we are the creators of our own reality. So if we can create shit, we can create amazing things as well. Okay, so just want to put that there. So when you're in this kind of state, the only way that you can get out of it is to radically change something, is to break the circuit in some way.
Okay.
So I really resonate with this state. I've been in it before. I've been depressed. I've been on antidepressants. I've been anxious. I've had all these kind of things going on. And the only thing that ever got me out of it was being able to step back and revisit why I'm doing this in the first place, whilst making my body feel safe. So, for example, before I learned somatics, before I learned doing nervous system work, and started doing a bit of healing on myself, I would go and have a nice bath. I would externally resource. So I would get nice pajamas on, I would read a book, and I would start to do maybe some meditations to help me. So this is like very basic level. And then when I learned how to actually internally regulate, like resource myself, I don't need anything else outside of me. I started to because I still get in spirals sometimes. Like it's a human response, especially we've all got survival responses running all day based on what's happened in our lives and our previous generations' lives. And it's no fault of our own. It just happens, but it's up to you to get out of it. And so I'm just trying to think of the way that I would handle it now is I just remind myself, the big picture. And I'm like a master manifester. So I can literally, I literally make anything I want happen. Doesn't like everything I want has not happened yet, but little things happen that confirm that things are on their way. And the only way I do that is because I'm able to really step into the person that I'm becoming. And I make sure that I'm that person now. So I'm able to feel what I'm becoming, which solidifies why I'm doing it. And then I'm able to step into their thoughts and their beliefs. Like, okay, so if I'm that person who does this big thing that I want to achieve, I need to think this thing now. And so I start shifting the beliefs and I go back and forth, and I do this in journaling. I do this with coaches. I do this with my practitioners. But the really easy way is just remind yourself of the big picture. Like, how do you want to feel when this is like, when you're living this life?
That's pretty deep, you know, all of this. I love how there's so many like philosophical questions popping up here as well. If we say, how do you want to feel in this life? Brilliant. And I think it's important lessons to reflect on. And I like also that you're giving not only this philosophical kind of like approach here, like very much in touch with your being, but also the practical tips, like what you mentioned earlier about looking left and right and whatnot.
Well, it's not philosophical. It's for me, it's facts, because I do this, it works. For me, it's spiritual. It's not theory, it's just experience, if that makes sense. So for example, anyone who listens to Jay Shetty here, there was a recent episode about the telepathy tapes. And basically they'd proven that telepathy is in fact real, and they've scientifically proved it, and all these kind of studies have happened, and it's all come out now. And he's basically saying, no shit. Like, yes, we know intuition's real. We can communicate with other, we're all connected because our ancestors have done this for thousands and thousands of years. So what I'm seeing now is things that I know to be true. So for example, telepathy is called ESP. I've been able to practice this for quite a while now. I learned the Silver Method a few years ago, and you can step into somebody else's world and understand how they're feeling much easier. Not to say that I can read your mind or anything, but you can understand what's happening in any one time when you're not actually there. You can use your intuition as well. And so all these practices, these spiritual practices, are actually now being studied and being proven to actually be a thing. And so if this is true now, and if the mainstream media is talking about it, then it's also true for you. And maybe you can even try to tap into your own spirituality and energetics and try it. Like, what's the worst that can happen?
True. I think quite personally that most of us as people in this world are probably very open about these ideas. Maybe many of us also think this is true or know this is true. I speak for myself that I feel that I like to connect with people. I mean, I build a matchmaking and connection platform, right? I care about creating connections between humans. I know as well that I can, sense people's moods very well and whatnot. But I do think that, speaking about energy and all these things, it's slightly, too far for me. Like, I get it. It's probably there.
Interesting. Scientifically proven now. Like, we all have energetic fields. And you can call it an aura, you can call it whatever you want, but in science, in quantum physics, we have an energetic field around us. And so if you're feeling people's emotions, you're having an energetic transfer subconsciously. On a scientific level, you could say my nervous system is responding to their nervous system on a subconscious level because your nervous system stores subconscious memories as well. That's what your survival patterns are.
Yeah, I think that makes absolute sense. I believe that as well. But I do want to circle back for a second to a couple of tangible tips, maybe.
Okay. We have gone
We've
off on
been
one.
no, we've been speaking a little bit, right? I mean, this event is called like bullish but balanced. We've been speaking a little bit about how to cope with more bearish tendencies, right? I brought something up before about feeling stressed or feeling, anxious. We've been speaking about that. We've been speaking about eating more during events, feeling better, being in touch with yourself and whatnot. But we've also been speaking about how high level, like brilliant, beautiful events that are happening, maybe investments that are going well, you just landed a new job, whatever it really is that goes well for you. How that can also cause energy. How can we manage our nervous system and energy during this high growth periods? Everything is going well, everything is flourishing. How can we remain balanced as well? Similar tips or something different?
It's similar. It's noticing your body cues, which am I eating? Am I drinking? Am I sleeping enough? Because when you're excited, it's like you can't sleep. For example, I got really exciting news the other week and I was like, oh my God, I haven't felt this excited for so long. I felt like I couldn't get to sleep. I felt like when I woke up, I was like out of bed, like boom, so excited. And my husband said to me, just remember your energy levels. So he was a great reminder. And so I started to notice, okay, I'm wired right now. What nervous system state am I in? Well, I'm in like a weird blend. It's like a fight energy, but not on the aggression. It's like fight, but also one foot in the green. Okay, so it's like yellow and green mixed together. It's like excited, bouncing off the ceiling. Activated is what you would call it. And so I know that I have to prioritize. Yoga for me is like my little ritual. Movement in general, any kind of slow movement helps me to manage my own nervous system, different for everybody. So I do 10 minutes of yoga flow. I'll do some bilateral eye movement for me, and I'll do lymphatic drainage because that's also helps me to move things around the body. And I do really specific breath work. But going back, you can use 4-7-8 breath because it's the same energy.
Yeah. Well, does this also apply? And thank you for this wonderful tips. Let's say I am at an event and I have to speak, right? I have to go on stage like many other leaders in the industry, women, men, doesn't matter who you are. We all have to put ourselves out there from time to time. It can also be just online during a presentation that you have to do. It can be anything. Let's say, what would be your top tip? We've spoken about breath work, maybe something reflective. How can I be calm in this like high energy moments if I want to be calm? Any tips?
Yeah. So actually, one of my favorite things to do when you're in real life, in like the actual world with other people, is orienting. Actually, that's in the visible dashboard. Orienting is simply looking slowly around the room and absorbing the information and just like letting the world come at you through your eyes, hearing the noises one by one, feeling your fingers maybe, just noticing the sensations. And then I do that for 3 things. So I like notice 3 things, and then I notice 3 things internally. How am I breathing? How does my body feel? And you're just moving back and forth between them, and it helps to calm the nervous system because it reminds the nervous system it's safe. So I just call it 3 by 3, and you can do that. But I actually, when I work one-on-one with people and in the teams, I teach them something called internal resourcing.
Okay.
And when I teach that, that's really powerful. And all they need to do is like clasp their hands together, and it's instant.
I like the practicality of this. Also of just looking around and taking the room in you, the environment.
And doing the physiological sigh as well, like in through the nose and slowly out. You can merge both of these exercises at the same time. And also, I have one client that she speaks all the time, constantly, really, really, really big events, like thousands and thousands of people. And she goes to the bathroom first and she she closes her eyes, she does a breath work really quickly, and she visualizes the whole thing playing out. We do a full mental rehearsal. She breathes and she feels calm whilst doing it. We use her kinesthetic anchor to help her feel regulated and calm in that moment. And we do a power stance. Like she stands, she puts her arms up and just feels regulated and ready, like excited, because she already knows how it's going to go. She's excited, she's ready to roll. So the anxiety, the fear just moves into the excitement. Same energy, because we're on this level already, just like skips over. And then she's ready and she's focused and she knows how it's going to go. So there's just like nothing to worry about because it's already done.
Yeah. Sorry that I'm interrupting, but is it correct that athletes are often doing that as well? I read that once,
It's
and it
exactly
really
what athletes
works.
do.
Yeah, right? Yeah. Massive.
Yeah, because once your brain does not know the difference between what's happening here and what's happening in your mind. It thinks it's happening in reality. Like, for example, you could imagine a lemon right now in your brain. Like, imagine biting into a lemon. Like, your body actually responds to it, right? It's like, oh, I don't want to bite into a lemon. And maybe your mouth starts to salivate or something. And then if you held a lemon in front of you and imagine doing it in front of you, you get the same body response. Your mind just does not know the difference, and neither does your nervous system.
Yeah, that is, I keep saying, oh, yeah, it's disconnected, but everything actually that we're telling and speaking about today,
Your
is saying
brain
that I'm
connected to
entirely
your
wrong.
body.
Yes.
Your head's
course.
not just walking around in thin air. And you have here the ventral vagus. Sorry, you have the vagus nerve that starts here, moves all the way into your gut.
Huh.
Fully connected, sending neurons everywhere.
Brilliant. Is there something, Emily? We still have a couple of minutes to go.
Mm-hmm.
About this very topic, right? Of managing highs and lows, about flourishing in the crypto space as a professional. Is there something, and I'm putting you on the spot here, that you feel like, I wish we had discussed this, or that she has asked me this, something that you think is specifically useful, maybe for women, but also for others? Something that you would love to talk about.
For women, this is not my expert area, but it's something that really helped me, is managing my energy around my menstrual cycle.
That is interesting.
Yeah. So I learned how to do this, and I started tracking my cycles, and I use HRV also as an indicator with my Whoop band. Also, use a biofeedback tool if you're a woman. It's so essential. But I time like events, workshops that I run, meetings, launches, all that kind of thing around my menstrual cycle. Like, if I'm on my period, for example, my brain doesn't work. I can't be innovative. I can't think of big things. It just doesn't work. I can sit and talk to you. That's about it. But when I'm in follicular, I'm like, zoom, I'm like crazy energy. I can do anything. I'm like a superwoman. So I would say learning that sooner will really help you. Because sometimes I have women like come to me and they're like, why am I so tired? And the first thing I ask them is like, where are you in your menstrual cycle? Step one.
Thank you. I think that will be incredibly helpful to read up about. I was lucky enough to be in your coaching group a couple of months ago for quite some time. And I remember that we spoke about this quite extensively. Now, without getting into details and risking that some of the men that are watching are dropping off entirely, I can definitely say that this is a very clever thing to do. Like bookkeeping, do it in certain parts of the month. Presentations, other parts. I think that makes total sense and is very, very interesting as well. Something, of course, that men cannot leverage.
Well, they can actually.
Oh, yeah.
They can help them. They can help the women around them. They can
Okay.
support them. They can understand. They can facilitate space for them. For example, I saw a reel yesterday about this, and it was like, it's like if you're a couple working at home around my whole menstrual cycle, right? And there's this woman, and on the back of her chair, it was like, don't disturb me. I'm in the highest energy possible, and I don't know how long it'll last. And then the other one was like, disturb me at 5 p.m. and come and tell me to come and read a book on the sofa. It's my period. So it's like being able to support them and have that kind of communication with your other halves or the women you work with. Like, I will tell my clients, I can't come to this office thing that you want me to come to in a different country, there's no point me being there. I will not be able to help you when I'm on my period. And I'm fine saying that because it's biology. We are humans. This is how we work. There's nothing to be ashamed of. And that's also a survival pattern, by the way. If we feel ashamed, it's social conditioning as well, of course. We have to be okay talking about how our body works.
Maybe this will actually, and thank you for bringing this so honestly to the table. I'm thinking, can we talk for a second about shame? And about especially shame that maybe comes up with rejection or things that don't work out for you professionally. I know I'm putting you potentially slightly on the spot here, but you know everything and you are so many different things. Let's just make it about me in this hypothetical scenario. Let's say that I feel shame for a rejection, or my company doesn't go well, or my product launch fails. How do I get back on top of that shame? Any thoughts here?
Yeah, well, shame is something that is an emotion in a response to something that happened. For example, let me think of an example that might have happened in developmental trauma, for example. Developmental trauma is when you're a child. By the way, when I use the word trauma, I don't mean something terribly traumatic's happened. All I mean is an event has happened and you haven't had the ability to react to it in the way that you needed to at the time. For example, you might have been a kid who failed their exams and they'd studied so hard and they were so ashamed, and their parents told them, "I'm disappointed in you." That's traumatic, right? You're telling a child that you are disappointed in them, even though they tried their absolute best. Imagine the imprint that leaves on a child. And as a child, you don't have the resources to regulate your nervous system. Unless you've been really lucky, unless you've got an amazing parent who knows also how to do this. Most of the time, you don't know how to regulate your own emotions or your own nervous system, and you think you are a disappointment. You take it on as an identity. And so whenever anything else happens, when it comes to rejection, when anyone's disappointed in you, whenever you think you've disappointed someone or you've done a bad job, that emotion that you felt at the time will resurface again and again and again.
Okay, just one quick second. Am I paraphrasing you well by saying trauma is an event that happened and you did not really process that properly, and that causes an imprint that can pop up later on again, like a sensitivity?
Basically, yeah, trauma is not the event, it's how you react to it.
All right, so that's how you react to it. And is that mostly things that have happened when you're young or up to a certain age? Probably it can happen your whole life, but
there's many different types of trauma. So we have developmental trauma, that's during childhood, usually up to the age of 7. That's when it really has a huge impact on your identity. Generational trauma can be passed down through generations, like the witch trials, like the war, like all these things that happened to our ancestors. That's passed down in DNA at least 2 generations. We have chronic trauma, which is something that is constantly happening, like domestic abuse. And then you've got an acute trauma, which is like something really huge happened, like a death or a big accident or something. All these kind of traumas can happen at any time in life, and how anybody deals with this is like each person deals with it so differently. So for example, you might be in a car crash with one person might come out totally fine and not traumatized and have like no response to it anymore, no triggers to it, like trigger tied to it. But somebody else might not be able to even survive anymore. They might be totally depressed and anxious and not know what to do and have PTSD, right? And so it really depends on your ability, your capacity to handle these things. So the bigger your capacity, the more you're able to handle this kind of thing.
Brilliant. And these things, can I imagine also, because of course I'm circling from time to time back to the crypto space. Imagine a massive market crash or a rock pool, or indeed you losing your job. I guess that all these things can also create this like traumatic events in different types of ways, right?
Yeah. Well, that would be an acute trauma, like losing your job. The way the way you react to it afterwards is the trauma. So, for example, if you lost your job and you are not in a situation to lose your job, then it's going to affect you a lot more because you'll feel shame, you'll feel disappointment, you'll feel all these other symptoms that very normal to feel, by the way, but they are amplified in different people based on their childhood, their upbringing, everything. So many factors come into play. But when it comes to shame, the best way to deal with shame is to understand what caused the shame in the first place. Get to, like, everything I do, and you already know this, is let's find the root cause. Let's not talk about it. Let's not re-traumatize anyone, because a lot of talk in therapy, a lot of like top-down therapy, like CBT, that kind of thing, is all about talking through it. And at the end of therapy, you feel like shit every time. You feel like exhausted and terrible, because you're re-traumatizing your body every single time. You're not getting down to the root of what happened. We don't need to talk about it. We need our body to show us what it needs to get out of this.
Okay.
And what you'll find is shame is often layered with terrible sadness or anger. So you have these overcoupling of emotions.
It's just lovely, and that I can ask you so many different things, and you always have an answer to us. To that extent,
I'm constantly learning, though. Like, I've practiced this, I got the qualifications, but I'm constantly developing. Like, there's new research that happens all the time. I'm constantly advancing in my knowledge, and I've got an amazing teacher. So
of course,
I'm very fortunate to have access to this information.
So let me then reiterate for a second that everyone who wants can check out Emily's book, or at least the chapter that you wrote in that collaborative book. They can also connect with you. I've been also already showing a couple of times the QR codes. I would definitely also recommend everyone to check out the various things that you've written on your LinkedIn profile and on the other profile of your company here. Now, I will traumatize some people now by saying that we are going to wrap up. If you feel that you need more therapy just because this session is finished, I would definitely say reach out to Emily. What I would like to ask you, Emily, if maybe the viewers, right, can take away from this session maybe 3 things, right? There's the holy number of 3 popping up here.
Okay, so know that you are the creator of everything you do. Everything. If you can create shit, you can create amazing things too. That's up to you. Okay. Number 2, you can't control anybody else but yourself. So learn how to manage your nervous system. Learn how to understand and decode your nervous system, and understand what it takes to move from an activated state to a deactivated, more regulated state. And 3, be kind to yourself. Just start to listen to your body more. What does it need? Feed it, water it, sleep. That's all you need. It's very basic, but not many people do this stuff.
That is very, very true. And hereby, I would say the circle is round, from not eating at events to your encouragement to definitely do eat, nurture yourself, so that your nature can continue to flourish and grow. I would like to thank you. Do you have some final words that you would like to add?
Yeah, just always, because I have a lot of people who say to me, they own their emotions. So for example, my anxiety, my depression. You are not your anxiety, you are not your depression, you are not your stress. It's a symptom of something underneath. If you can figure out what's going on underneath, all these things go away, or at least you can control and manage them. And I just again want to just reiterate, like, you are in control of this. And there are many ways to get out of it. So if you are struggling right now, reach out. I'll send you all the free resources, because it's literally, I think this should be every human's right to know how to do this. I don't want to ever gatekeep anything, because like, this stuff should be taught in schools, and there's probably a reason it isn't, right? Not going to go down that road. So yes, be empowered. Know that you're in control of everything that's happening to you. You don't need anybody else to help you.
Yes, I agree with you. That brings me back to the final thing here. We are in control. Okay, if we circle back for a final second to women, yes, we don't maybe represent so many, such a high number of, total workforce in the Web3 space. Yes, maybe we have some difficulties raising capital. Maybe, we are slightly more stressed, or, we're facing some other systemic barriers and challenges, something that is also addressed by our article that is coming out shortly. But we are in those numbers. Like, we can step up, any human being can step up, we can own our emotions, we can own what we're doing, and we can hustle, and we can have fun, and we can lead good lives, basically.
Exactly.
Right?
Don't fall into the victim mentality that this is happening to you, because it's not happening to you. Yes, that we have the patriarchy. Yeah, we can't change that right now. We can't all change everything. All we can change is ourselves, and start there first before trying to change anything else.
That is brilliant. I would like to close the session with those words. We can change. We can change ourselves. We can change, hopefully, by that also many other things in today's society. Not in a lost place through Web3 and every cool thing that we're doing out there. I want to thank you very much for your time, Emily. Everyone, reach out to her if you have some more questions, and I will see you. We will see you next time during a new Ecstasy session or Throat Labs, indeed, normal, regular session on LinkedIn. Thank you for your time.
Amazing. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Take care, everyone.